Namaste. Let us now begin our next talk in this series from Heart to Heart, Volume 2. These are talks and questions and answers from the proceedings of the seminars of Sahaj Marg during September-October 1987 at France, Madagascar, Switzerland by Pujya Shri Parthaga Sarthi Rajagopalachari Chariji Maharaj. Let us begin the next talk titled His Love. I really don't know what to speak about. Maybe about fear. Because in the last few days I have received quite a few letters. I don't know whether they are new Abhyasis or old Abhyasis. They all want to meet me, but are afraid to meet me. I don't know what it is that they are afraid of, but one Abhyasi today was able to have a sitting and during the sitting realize that the fear was of the self. I think this is what Brother Patrick was referring to. So we should try to remove this fear and establish some sort of a rapport. Then this question of my being available to everybody. I am here and I don't know what more I should do. And one thing was rather intriguing. How intimately do you want to meet me? That was a complaint, you see, that they were not able to meet with me intimately. Of course, there are limits to which we can go. So within those permissible limits, I am always available. Just by way of a joke, you see. And of course, the second problem is the language barrier. I know many Abhyasis who want to speak to me alone and they don't want even anybody to translate. Now, what to do until either they learn English or I learn French? Yesterday, we had 3 Abhyasis who wanted only a lady to translate. So, there are many problems, you see, but they are not really problems. I can tell you this from my experience with my master. I had the enormous advantage of speaking his language, Hindi. But there were thousands of Abhyasis from South India who did not know how to talk with the master at all, and they managed very well. They had questions to ask, but the questions were answered without being asked. Often, groups of them would sit in front of the master, longing for a sitting, and by himself, master would tell them, I will give you a sitting, because he could see the longing in their hearts. When they were hungry, he knew when they were hungry and he would order somebody to take them to the kitchen and feed them. It was my own experience that once I was sleeping without anything, nothing below me, nothing above me, and it was cold in the winter. At 11 o'clock at night from somewhere, he came with a blanket and covered me up. So that is the sort of thing we are looking for in Sahaj Marg, that what we come for should be fulfilled. Of course, all this superficial talk and jokes, they are nice, but the real thing is here in the heart. And if that is not filled when you go back, all the talks and the speeches are a waste. I once asked my master how important language is for spiritual people, because when I met him in 1964, he was surrounded by his own people, Hindi-speaking people, with few from the south. Then by 1970-71, there were at least 4 or 5 linguistic groups, Hindi, Gujarati, Kannada people from Karnataka, Tamil speaking, Telugu speaking, all distinct languages. And of course, after 72, his house in Shahjahanpur became literally a tower of Babel. So many languages, French, German, Danish, Italian. So sometimes we did not know who was speaking what. Yet the master managed because he did not listen to the people in their languages. He conversed with them or communicated with them in the only universal language available to us, the language of the heart. I asked him once, how is this possible? And with a twinkle in his eyes, he gave a very simple answer. He said, love does not need speech. It's a fact. So, that is the sort of language we must learn to develop. If you go one level higher in that love for the Master and his love for us, the presence or absence of the beloved becomes unimportant. It is only at the lowest expression of love that this body business becomes important. I think it is a carryover from the animal existence we have brought into this life. You know, when animals meet, they must sniff and paw and all that. I think that instinct has remained in the human being. I don't say this disrespectfully or as a criticism, but just as a speculation as to why it is necessary. Because love as love can exist without bodies. For instance, all of you who knew my master Babuji still love him. How do you love him? His body has been gone now for 4 years and more, but the love is very real love. It is not just looking at a photograph and saying, oh, this is my wife. I love her very much. Now, how are we able to love a man who is not only absent but who is, in the common parlance, dead? So, if it proves anything, it only proves what I have been saying, that we can love without the person being present. We can even love the person without his presence ever being again possible for us, because there is no possible chance of Babuji coming back in the flesh again. Even more important, we still feel his love for us. At least I do. I am sure many here must be feeling it also. Now, he has no body. He is not on this earth of ours. So from where is he loving us? How is he loving us? We still have the body. We still have a heart with which we can love him, even though he is not present. But without a body, without a heart, and presumably from his divine existence, where he need not even think of us, because he is in a different plane. We are in another plane. How does he still love us? So you see, the lover need not have a body or a heart. The beloved need not have the beloved need not have a body or a heart, provided that when they were both present physically, this love had become established. I think it is for this reason that the Master comes physically. If he had never appeared, we could never have loved him. You can imagine a master and love such an imaginary master. It's not possible. So I think it is for that reason that all this happens. The great personality comes before us, shows himself to us, talks to us, laughs with us, jokes with us, eats with us, so that we can learn to love him, and of course, his love is always eternal. So, the important thing is not that he has to learn to love us, because he can love us from wherever he is, by appearing before us as a human being with the enormous lovable qualities. Also, many foibles, quirks, who know, or funny characteristics like spitting or things like the hookah, he gives us or presents himself to us to evoke our love very much in the fashion that a child can only ask for a toy which it sees, or a man can only love a woman he sees. There is no man born who can love an abstract woman, nor can a woman with all their capacity for love a man who has never been present before them. So the presence is necessary to start this process of lover beloved happening. like a matchstick is necessary to light the candle, and having lit up the matchstick is unimportant. It is now the candle which becomes important. Perhaps like that, the Master is a matchstick, a divine luminant, always light in his own realm, in his own sphere, coming down to set us alight, set us aflame. So that love which is in our hearts, cold, icy, selfish, he sets it alight and sort of makes it melt. And then his job is finished. He says, au revoir. Au revoir meaning goodbye until we meet again. Now you do which I have done for you. We too have not to remember one very important thing. He comes with his divine love, the divine flame of love, sets our hearts afire, makes us also burn like him, and then we have to transfer this to the following succeeding generation. If we think it is for enjoyment, for intimacy with the Master, it is a betrayal of his love for us. So you see, he comes to love us not because he needs our love, but to teach us how to love, so that in our turn we may teach others how to love. And then someday it is possible that the whole world is full of love, which is what we are looking for. So this is the problem, or this is the purpose for which a Master appears before us. Spirituality, I think, is a big word. Too many letters in it, 10 letters I think, or 11 letters. Love has only 4. And what are these 4 to symbolize? Him, me, his love for me, my love for him. Now generally, we want his love for us. How are we to love him? So this receiving aspect of love alone seems to be still very human, you see. We are still very human, and we would rather be loved than love. This is the common, what shall I say, the cry of the human heart, you see. Nobody loves me. This is very common thing. Now, why on earth should anybody love you? I mean, there is no logical reason why somebody should be loved, you see. The occasion when you can say, nobody loves me, is when you deserve to be loved, and you are not loved. Now the Master does the opposite. No one here deserves his love, but he loves us. But it comes to our loving others as he wants us to do. We say, oh, he is not deserving, she is not deserving. I only love those who are deserving. Then how can we become like him? So becoming like him means being like him, loving like him, no distinctions. He loves anybody who is there, not only before him, but not yet born perhaps too, because a love like that cannot have limitations of space and time. Otherwise, the moment he left us, he should have stopped loving us, or he should have not at all loved us enough to come here, because he never saw us before. So he loves us before we come into existence. He loves us when we exist in his presence, and he loves us when we are out of his existence again. Not only is his love eternal, we are in some way eternal in his presence. Because of his love, there is no death, there is no life, there is no afterlife. Therefore, his love for us really proves that we too are eternal like him. And all this living, dying business is a play of the senses, a play of the consciousness. And all that we have to realize is, if he can love me before I am born, I must have been there in some form for him to love me. When I am alive, of course, I am present before him for him to love me. When I am dead, I must again be there for him to love me in some form or the other. So what is this continuity of me which survives the past, the present and the future? It must be that which he loves, and if I hate it, What more do I need? Because He is eternal, I am eternal. Our love for each other is eternal. And all this dance drama of meeting and parting, it is a play to awaken us to this reality. That human being that you are, don't allow yourself to be clouded by your senses and your desires. Your life is not from what you consider your birth to that which consider your death. Therefore, don't try futilely to compress all the pleasures of existence into these 60 to 70 years. In any case, what you can do with your body is a very, very gross thing compared to what love can do at its subtlest. Learn this from me, He says, and comes to teach us. Therefore, it is a sign of His tremendous love and generosity that He does, which He never need do, leaving His divine state, assuming a human form, suffering all the consequences only to raise us to His own level. You see, even when you play with a child, you have to sit on the floor, crawl with it, spoil your trousers, dirty your hands. You are prepared to do all this for your child. He does the same thing for us. So please remember, the only purpose for His coming here is to raise us up to Himself. Otherwise, it is silly for Him to be there at all. In the process, He has to do all these human things to convince us that He is like us and that therefore we are like Him, even though we are yet only human beings. It is like a child being told by the father, "My son, you are my son. Everything that I have is yours. Don't think you are different from me. My name is your name. My family is your family. My property is your property. The only difference is I am grown up adult with full knowledge of all things. You are still a child who has to realize all this." So the Father takes us by the hand, guides us through until we are like Him. The same thing the Master does for us. Now, if there is one who does not need all this play, apparently he is neglected. But he is not really neglected because he doesn't need it. Suppose a child of 3 realizes everything that his father is, it would be a waste of the parent's time and effort to concentrate on that child and teach it in the same way the other children are being taught. This is also quite normal, that the sick child gets more attention than the healthy child. It needs that attention. Will anybody grudge it? Only a very selfish person would do it. So we must remember this also, that the attention that my master gives is based on need. You know, some have to be spoken to, some have to be criticized, some are satisfied with just a smile, some are there who are just happy if they can look at him from a distance. And there is the very rare person who is prepared to stay in his own house in the knowledge that master is there. There doesn't mean here or there somewhere. The master is there, I am there. What is there now for us to do or to talk about or to feel? That is a very rare abhyasa indeed, because he must be almost like the master. So you see, we get all the attention in the beginning, and if you develop as we should, one index can be "don't be frightened," can be a reduction in the master's attention of us. He still attends from the heart, otherwise we wouldn't grow, but the superficial human attention stops. That is when the problem comes. It is like the first child becoming jealous of the second child in the family. Till yesterday, he was the darling of the house. Suddenly, a second baby comes from nobody knows where, and now everybody is making a fuss about that little bundle of flesh. Now starts the problem in the family, and then the mother is really put to trouble. How to discipline the first child without making him hate you, without making him or her feel neglected, loving less than the second child. So I think the master also faces this problem. As I have said before, I think last year in Toret Sur Loop, I said jealousy is the cause of all this. We need attention, not to grow. We need attention to satisfy ourselves that the master is also thinking of us. I have seen that sometimes an Abhyasi is sometimes weeping also in some corner, and all that is necessary is to say, why are you weeping? And that attention is enough. So you see, let us learn to seek attention for growth, not for satisfaction. Because satisfaction in the spiritual field is a meaningless thing. I would rather be totally neglected outwardly if my master is attending to me inwardly. That is what matters. We were having a walk this evening and talking about love and companionship, and one girl was a bit troubled. So I asked her one question. When you are with your beloved, like when lovers meet in the evening, go hand in hand in the lovers' walk, what do they achieve? Very often there are arguments, quarrels, and they part, sometimes never to meet again, depending on how well they have quarreled. On the contrary, if they don't meet, each is thinking of the other. So would you rather meet and quarrel and part, or would you not meet but have the other person thinking of you all the time? It is a very simple thing. The every house it is the absent person who is being thought of all the time. One child in the family is away. The mother is thinking of that child. Where is Henry? Or where is Stella? And of course, the other children and the father say, why on earth are you thinking all the time of that person? We are here. Of course, the mother never gives this answer, but the right answer should be, you are here. Why should I think of you? I don't think of one who is present, and this is the tragedy of being present, you see. We are physically present, but we are out of the person's mind. This is perhaps one reason why marriages sort of, go down in their potential. We are too present. So we have to make them that present, that the presence somehow becomes an absence. Then the flame of love, the flame of longing, it's kept alive. Now, how to do that? Each one has to learn it, and perhaps that is also one of the mysteries of the master coming and leaving us behind him and going away, because it is always a funny and very mysterious aspect of the human heart that we love that which is absent more than that which is present. In English, we have the saying, absence makes the heart grow fonder. So, if a couple wants to keep this divine, delightful flame of love burning through marriage too, one technique is to stop making demands on each other, because only that which is present can make a demand. So, it is another aspect of love that when we stop making demands, love grows. Because in some way this person becomes as if he is absent or she is absent. So these are some of the things we should try to realize not only in our relationship with the master but even among ourselves. Because love does not depend on which level of evolution we are at. It is a universal thing. Not only universally human but universal in the real sense. So if that lesson is learned properly, then there is no presence and no absence. Love becomes truly eternal. The beloved becomes truly present all the time, whether he is there or not. And we begin to realize that his love for us is also eternal, where we are here or not, whether we are here or not. So this is what we should try to bring into our lives as a veritable truth and experience it in our lives by His grace. Here we conclude our 12th talk, the love. In the next week we will commence the 13th talk, the way of progress. Thank you for listening.